They were the all-American couple.
Good-looking family, great kids, lived in a great neighborhood.
She was a beautiful school teacher.
Alicia was the total package. She had beauty and brains.
He was a handsome veteran.
One of those type personalities that seemed like everybody loved.
But just when it seemed they were bound for a life of happiness, a hail of gunfire stopped them dead in their tracks.
Please help me, please help me, please help me. Ma'am? Somebody shot my husband.
The shooting sparked a frantic manhunt
The murder had so many questions and not a lot of answers.
and would ultimately expose a tawdry tale laced with lies, lust, and revenge served up at point-blank range.
It wasn't all sunshine and candy bars.
So many twists and turns.
I was sitting on the edge of my seat, wondering what's gonna happen.
It reminds you of something from a movie.
June 3rd, 2004. It's a quiet summer evening in the upscale Jackson, Mississippi neighborhood of Lakeover.
You're talking about, a middle-class black professional in my neighborhood.
But at 11:10 p.m., an alarm is triggered at the home of Brian and Alicia Hughes.
It was loud enough and pronounced enough for me to know that something wasn't right.
When no one keys in the code, the security company calls the Hughes residence.
Somebody shot my husband. He's bleeding. Please, somebody.
Okay, ma'am, I'm going to call the police right back.
Please, hurry.
Okay.
Officers race to the Hughes residence. Guns drawn, they step inside and find a scene of unimaginable horror.
They found Brian Hughes in the front room. He was actually lying face down on the floor.
A vast pool of blood surrounds Brian. His wife, Alicia, is trembling beside him.
Brian, baby, wake up, please.
She was hysterical, crying, screaming, somebody help my husband. I need some help.
Help me, somebody.
I screamed in vain. It was just unbelievable.
Officers attempt to administer first aid, but it's too late.
He was shot 5 times. The lethal shot entered his chest, and that's what killed him.
6-3, can you start us a couple of
The major crimes unit is notified, and in a matter of minutes, homicide detectives are there to initiate a sweep of the home. There's no sign of the gunman or the murder weapon, but officers find the couple's 2 young daughters, safe and sound, asleep in their bedroom. It appears the only eyewitness is Brian's wife.
Now, I know you're disturbed, but can you tell me what happened here tonight?
Brian had went out with his brother, and I went to sleep in the room with my daughters, and I heard a pop.
Alicia's statement to the police was that she was sleeping in the bed with her daughters, and then she heard popping sounds.
She heard this pop, pop, pop sound, and she thought it was coming from the air conditioning system in their home.
According to Alicia, that's when the alarm sounded.
She went to turn off the alarm, realized the door was open, closed the door, and as she was walking back, she saw her husband lying in a pool of blood.
Please help me, please help me, please help me.
This was a bad nightmare for Alicia. She lost her husband, kids lost a father.
Brian Lamar Hughes was born in Jackson, Mississippi in 1974. Even as a child, Brian was a natural leader who attracted friends and followers.
Brian was just everybody's friend. You look in the crowd, everybody kind of standing around Brian. That Brian is their boy. He was a very likable person.
In high school, Brian excelled both in the classroom and on the playing field. Also blessed with good looks and personality, he was popular with the girls as well.
Brian was tall, dark, and handsome. Definitely the type of man a woman would find attractive.
But even in high school, Brian was always looking for that one special person.
Hey.
Hey.
That is, until he laid eyes on fellow classmate Alicia Johnson.
So what you up to?
It was the end of class, and he was sitting there, And he was just looking at me.
Wanted to come through and tell you how pretty you were.
He was real spontaneous. He liked to do romantic things.
She was in love with him. Two young folks, who began a relationship as high school sweetheart.
Your first love is exciting. It feels like nobody in the world understands or can possibly imagine how you're feeling.
After high school, Brian and Alicia followed each other to nearby Jackson State University. But their newfound freedom and a sea of young co-eds quickly put their love for each other to the test.
They were still figuring out who they were, what they wanted, and Brian still had the desire to play around.
He was just a young man feeling his oats. I think Brian was into a lot of things.
Alicia and Brian ultimately decided to see other people. Shortly after that, Brian dropped out and enlisted in the Air Force.
Brian and Alicia's relationship was rocky in their 20s. It was on again, off again.
While Brian was in the Air Force, Alicia earned a master's degree in education and landed a teaching job at a local elementary school. Even though she dated other men during this time, Alicia still had a soft spot in her heart for Brian.
He was a good guy. He had a way about him where he could make you feel special, without really even trying.
And after 4 years in the Air Force, Brian returned to Jackson.
After the military, he came back home, and he followed in his father's footsteps and started working at Delphi Packard Electric.
What?
What you doing?
I'm washing dishes. What you think?
But it wasn't just the job Brian came home for.
What you want me to do? Start right here?
You better stop.
There were still that young flame that was still going for each other, and they were able to rekindle that fire.
Brian and Alicia's desire for one another had never burned hotter. And this time, their passionate reunion was life-changing.
They were in love. That was her soulmate.
When Brian and Alicia hooked back up together, they were looking to build a life with each other and live that happily ever after together.
In the fall of 1999, almost a decade after they first started dating, Alicia and Brian welcomed the birth of their first child. 8 months later, they married.
I just wanted to be, a good wife, a good mom, and good at what I did.
With the couple making good money, they bought and renovated a home in the charming middle-class neighborhood of Lakeover.
They're moving into this great neighborhood. It's like, wow, they're doing it right.
The couple had even more to celebrate when Alicia gave birth to another baby girl in 2001.
They have these great kids. You think they're just, building a great life for themselves and just living the American dream.
Which makes the nightmarish scene police encounter inside the Hughes residence all the more tragic.
Everybody was shocked that this thing could even have occurred to these two people.
But who would want to kill Brian Hughes? And why?
Still trying to piece of this.
As investigators dig deeper, a strange theory about the crime emerges. One that would shock everyone who'd ever known this seemingly storybook couple.
It's a true whodunit. And then when the story started to unravel, there was an even bigger mystery there.
High school sweethearts Brian and Alicia Hughes had gone their separate ways, only to reunite after college and reignite their red-hot romance.
Brian and Alicia were definitely a power couple. They seemed like the perfect romantic love story.
But that love story is ripped apart when police respond to a shooting at the Hughes residence and find Brian's body riddled with gunshot wounds.
It seemed like a mystery. No one knew exactly what happened on that night of June the 3rd, 2004.
A stunned Alicia tells police that she'd fallen asleep in her daughter's room, only to awake to the sound of what she thought was a noisy air conditioner. That's when the alarm sounded.
The door's open, the alarm system is going off. She goes into the front room and sees that her husband's been shot, and bleeding out everywhere.
It was surreal. It was like an out-of-body experience. You feel so inept.
You just start thinking like, wow, this poor woman, this happens to her husband and with her kids in the house.
Please help me, please help me.
As detectives console Alicia, officers begin processing the scene.
Were there any signs of forced entry?
No, sir. We checked all the doors and windows. If they came in, they had to come in through the front.
Okay, thank you.
But on the front porch, they find evidence that suggests the attack on Brian began near the door.
There were 3 shell casings outside the door.
In the den, police recover 3 more shell casings, which suggest a total of 6 rounds were fired, and all but 1 made contact with their target.
This murder was pretty brutal. Brian was shot multiple times, so whoever shot him definitely wanted him dead.
Just outside the couple's home, detectives noticed something else.
There were skid marks in the street right in front of the residence.
Somebody had a car sitting outside. They went up there and shot him. He got back in the car and sped away.
Between the shell casings, the skid marks, and the home's location in the upscale Lakeover neighborhood, authorities wonder if Brian has been the victim of a deadly robbery.
When I first heard about it, I thought that it was someone from the outside came in and committed the murder. Jackson has more murders than it should have. I thought it could have been a burglary gone bad.
But as they continue to search the residence, detectives realize there's a problem with that theory.
There was no sign of forced entry into the home. They didn't take anything.
As the mystery deepens, news of Brian's murder spreads through Jackson like wildfire.
My mom calls my phone, hysterical, crying. He's dead, Brian is dead. Brian is dead. They shot him and they killed him.
First thing I thought about, the 2 little girls. They don't have a daddy no more. And that made me mad. He was young.
Grieving friends and family soon converge on the Hughes residence. Police try to be sympathetic while preserving their crime scene.
Sir, we're still trying to piece the investigation together. Just hold tight, because we will have some questions for you later on.
The Hughes family was like a prominent family here in Jackson. The police allowed certain folks in the house, especially both relatives of Alicia Hughes and relatives of Brian Hughes, into the house that night.
Her family was there. A lot of people were there. Everybody was upset.
But no one seems more upset than Brian's wife.
Alicia's distraught. She can hardly speak. Understandably so, she's very, very upset.
I didn't want to be there. It was so difficult. It was just unbelievable.
In fact, Alicia is so distraught, she's of little use to detectives.
Listen, she's too upset, man. We're not going to get any information from her today.
Yeah, I agree. Let's cut her loose, and we'll talk to her in the morning.
A person in authority made the call to talk to her at a later time.
You got somewhere you can go with the kids?
Yeah.
Come on, we'll get you out.
Alicia packs an overnight bag, gathers her 2 girls, and heads to her mother's house. Meanwhile, detectives question friends and family gathered at the scene.
What's your name, sir?
Willie Hughes. And who are you in relation to the victim?
I was his brother.
Can you tell me where you were tonight?
We just went out to grab a few drinks. We got some fast food, and I dropped him off, and that was the last time I saw him.
They had been out, having a good time. He dropped off his brother that night.
Think maybe somebody followed him home, rang the doorbell, and he let him in?
That may explain the unforced entry.
And the shell casings outside.
Investigators float this theory by Brian's family, but they find it hard to believe Brian would answer the door for anyone at such a late hour.
If you didn't call, and if you just go to the door and knock or ring the doorbell, he would not answer the door.
So if Brian wouldn't answer the door for a stranger, was it possible he knew his attacker? The answer to that question would scandalize all of Jackson, and in the process reveal a dark side to Brian and Alicia's romance that few had ever seen. The fairy tale romance of Brian and Alicia Hughes has ended in a flurry of gunfire.
Baby, wake up, please.
We're talking about just 2 great individuals, loving relationships, great, perfect family, and having gone through this was terrible.
Shell casings collected at the scene suggest Brian was initially shot near the front door, then again in the living room.
They were of the belief that someone, an outsider, broke in, obviously, because the alarm went off, and shot Mr. Hughes from that doorway.
But the lack of forced entry suggests Brian willingly let the shooter into his and Alicia's home. If that was the case, who was this mysterious acquaintance Brian allowed inside? And what sinister desires compelled them to murder him in cold blood? The one person who might help investigators answer that question is Brian's wife, Alicia. But the horror of discovering her husband's dead body has seemingly left Alicia too distraught to be of any use. And a few hours after the murder, detectives allow Alicia and her children to leave the scene and spend the night with some relatives. By the following morning, Alicia is ready to talk.
Good morning, Alicia. I just want to start off by thanking you for coming in this morning. I know you're distraught. I know it's a trying time. But I just wanted to ask you, is there anybody who would want to hurt Brian?
No. Everybody loved him.
Do you think you could walk us through the events of last night again?
Yeah, just put the girls to bed. And so I fell asleep.
Her story never changed, that she heard a loud popping or something.
I thought it was the air conditioning system, so I got up.
She said she went in the front room, and there she said she found her husband dead, lying on the floor.
Then the alarm company called and I answered the phone.
Though Alicia's statement doesn't get investigators any closer to cracking the case, it does seem to dovetail with evidence collected at the scene and allows them to essentially rule her out as a possible suspect. But before they release her, detectives ask Alicia to submit to a gunshot residue test.
It's just standard procedure.
Sure.
After a quick dusting of her hands, she is free to go.
Thank you, ma'am.
They let her go.
We'll see you after.
The detectives did not think that she was a suspect.
So who did have the opportunity and the motive to pull off this brutal attack?
It's one of those situations where, dead men can't talk.
Perhaps, but maybe the dead man's autopsy could.
Brian was shot in several areas. He was shot in the chest area, in the arm, in the thigh area. What was interesting about one of those shots, he was shot near the groin area.
It just makes you wonder what was really going on and what led to that. Was it a crime of passion? Was it rage?
It's an interesting question. Brian is a handsome, charming man who seems to have it all. Is it possible someone murdered him out of jealousy? In an effort to answer that question, investigators interview several of Brian's friends and co-workers.
Fred?
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Detective Daniels?
Nice to meet you.
This is my partner, Detective Gibson.
Nice to meet you.
In doing so, they unearth a shocking revelation.
Is there anything you can tell us about his lifestyle or shed any information on his life that might help us with this investigation?
I mean, Brian was a good man. He was there for his family, financially, but Brian loved women and women loved Brian. He never had any trouble meeting them.
So basically, he was a player.
Absolutely.
Many of his co-workers talked about how it was obvious that he was involved with women that he worked with. It was obvious that there was something intimate or romantic going on.
Brian could meet him anywhere because he knew every bar, every club, and he was friends with everybody. Jackson was his palate.
This is completely shocking that Brian, who lives this picture-perfect life, is having an affair.
Fred Clark Jr., a friend of Brian's, also tells police about a conversation he overheard just 2 weeks before Brian's murder.
Well, there was this one time I went over his house.
When I was walking in his front door, he was in this heated argument with this guy on the phone. The guy was cussing, I could hear the cuss words through the phone, and the dude was like saying, "I'm gonna get you."
Show up in my yard if you want to.
And he basically told the person on the phone, F you, do what you gotta do.
You.
What's this all about, man?
He told me his girlfriend had been paying for his cell phone for about 2 years. And the girlfriend was married.
That was a husband on the phone.
Because they found out that he did have other lady friends, of course, anyone that would have been associated with them, the ladies as well as their partners, boyfriends or husbands, would be suspects.
Well, that helps us a lot.
Sure.
Fred Clark's statement got investigators wondering. Had the woman's husband threatened to kill Brian if he didn't stop sleeping with his wife? and had Brian signed his own death warrant by daring the man to make good on it.
Brian is a man. I mean, you're not gonna be intimidated by what another man's saying on the phone.
But who is Brian's mistress? And more importantly, who is the jealous husband? According to Brian's colleagues, the woman's name is Sandra Davis. She's married to Martin Davis, one of Brian's acquaintances. When confronted, Martin doesn't deny he'd recently discovered his wife was sleeping with Brian. Nor does he deny threatening Brian over the phone in a rage. Investigators are suspicious. They subpoena Brian's phone records to see if he'd been in contact with either of the Davises in the days leading up to the murder.
Investigators discovered that right before Brian's murder, that he was speaking to somebody on the phone.
Brian hung up the phone.
Gotta go.
That was about 10 minutes before he was killed.
Could this phone call be from Martin Davis or his wife? And is it another heated exchange that led to Brian's murder? In a case already dripping with allegations of infidelity and deceit, the answer to that question would prove more scandalous than investigators ever imagined. The brutal slaying of Jackson, Mississippi native Brian Hughes has taken a bizarre turn. In speaking with friends and coworkers, detectives have learned the dream life Brian was living with his beautiful wife Alicia is a mirage, and that Brian was anything but a model husband.
The extramarital affairs and several women on the side, it just cracks the mirror of what you thought this family was like.
But the allegations of Brian's infidelity have allowed investigators to zero in on a possible suspect, a man named Martin Davis. Martin's wife Sandra had been having a torrid affair with Brian.
The husband threatened the next time he interacts with his wife, he was going to hurt Brian.
You!
A search of cell phone records reveals Brian was on the phone with someone just minutes before he was murdered. Investigators suspect that if that phone number traces back to Martin Davis, then they've likely identified Brian's killer. But it turns out the number isn't registered to Martin Davis, but rather to one Robbie Rayford.
Was a possible jealous husband of one of the women that Brian was having an affair with.
But when investigators pay Robbie Rayford a visit, they're shocked by who greets them.
Hello. Hi. Can we speak to Robbie Rayford, please?
I'm Robbie Rayford.
This Robbie person, whom Brian was speaking to before his murder, was actually a girl and not a guy.
Robbie is devastated to learn Brian has been murdered, and she pulls no punches as to why.
We've been sleeping together for 2 years. Brian and I are in love.
She talked about, how they had had relationships. They had had sex, numerous times.
When was the last time you spoke?
A few days ago.
Yeah, just got home.
She said she heard Brian come in, set the alarm system at the house, turn the TV on.
So I come see you tomorrow. I gotta go.
And then he said I have to go.
Is that unusual?
No, that's our code for my wife is in the room.
Robbie said that was the code word that, she and Brian used to let her know that Alicia was there.
If that's the case, that means that she was there in the living room and possibly during the time that he was killed.
Investigators are floored. Not only does Robbie Rayford's statement call into question Alicia Hughes' version of events, it vaults Alicia to the top of the list of possible suspects.
Maybe she heard him on the phone. He thought she was asleep. He was talking to his girlfriend. She got her gun. She walked into the living room. She pointed the gun at him.
Lie to me one more time.
Come on.
Again and again and again.
Though it's admittedly hard for investigators to imagine the beautiful Alicia Hughes as a vengeful killer.
It just doesn't make sense that this lady, this petite, frail schoolteacher, would have killed him.
Although investigators can't help but think back to the intensely personal nature of Brian's injuries.
If Alicia is the shooter in this case, that groin shot was one that may have been personal for her. You know, if you're gonna cheat on me, you know, here's one for you.
But neither Brian's mortal wounds nor Robbie Rayford's statement are enough to concretely link Alicia to the murder. And forensic evidence collected at the scene still suggests that whoever shot Brian initiated the attack from just outside the front door.
There were 3 shell casings found outside the door on the doorstep. Somebody would have had to been out front shooting the gun.
Investigators decide to revisit the crime scene to see if there's anything they might have missed.
Just doesn't make sense.
There was no traces of blood from the front door to where he was, where his body was found.
There's no blood splatter on the walls or nothing?
All the blood that was found was directly beneath his body on the floor in the living room. He was shot with a .45 caliber handgun. It's a big, large caliber handgun. He was shot 5 times. Somehow, from the foyer to the living room where his body was found, he didn't bleed 1 drop.
If he got shot by a .45, we would have had splatter on the floor, on the walls, or something, but all the blood's right here.
Their theory was that someone actually got those shell casings from the inside and actually placed them on the outside.
If that's the case, then the shooting was initiated by someone inside the home.
Alicia?
And she staged the casings outside.
But what about the tire tracks found outside the couple's home? They suggest someone may have quickly fled the scene. In speaking with one of the Hughes neighbors, that fact is also called into question.
The witness that we interviewed never said anything about they heard a car.
We don't know when they were put there. Skid marks can stay on pavement for months and months before they wear off from water and erosion. That's the problem with the skid marks.
The affairs, the blood evidence, Robbie Rayford's statement. It appears the circumstantial evidence now points to Alicia Hughes as her husband's killer. But is jealousy a bona fide motive?
Why couldn't she have just divorced him? If he had all these affairs and she was sick of him fooling around, you get a divorce. She was a school teacher. She had a job. The money's coming every month, so why kill him?
But when they pull Brian and Alicia's financial records, investigators find another clue.
There were 2 life insurance policies. One was $250,000, and I believe there was a small one for around $80,000. And that was gonna go away once they got the divorce. Now, the way that wouldn't go away is if Brian died and she got the life insurance money.
Suspicion only deepens when investigators contact Brian and Alicia's insurance company. It turns out they had received a phone call from Alicia just weeks after Brian's death.
It's pretty shocking for Alicia to be inquiring about the interest that she would be making on her husband's life insurance policy, considering that her husband had been brutally murdered.
Still, without additional physical evidence, investigators have no way of charging Alicia with any crime. Then on February 3rd, 2005, investigators received word from the state crime lab. The results of the gunshot residue test, administered to Alicia almost as an afterthought, have come back positive.
Either you fired a gun, held a gun, or was close to when a gun was fired. Those are the only 3 reasons it would be on the back of your hand.
In addition to the gunshot residue, a deeper background check reveals Alicia had easy access to a gun similar to the murder weapon.
Brian apparently had owned a .45 caliber weapon that could not be found.
Still, one could argue the findings of the gunshot residue test aren't quite a slam dunk.
They only found 1 particle of gunshot residue on the back of her right hand.
But when coupled with the circumstantial evidence, it's enough to charge Alicia Hughes with the murder of her husband. The story is immediate front-page news in Jackson.
It was sensational. It was huge. I mean, you have this picture-perfect couple who were high school sweethearts, the perfect love story that ends in a tragic murder.
I didn't want to believe that she did it. I didn't want to.
But nobody claims to be more shocked by Alicia's arrest than Alicia herself.
You always assume that people are going to believe you. And so I always felt like, surely they can't consider me because, I've told the truth.
There was intense interest in this case. because it had everything. You know, it had the cheating husband. It had the wife accused of shooting her husband.
And as the case heads to trial, it becomes clear that a guilty verdict against this wife and mother turned alleged killer is anything but a done deal. On January 3rd, 2007, Alicia Hughes is escorted into a Jackson, Mississippi courtroom to stand trial for the first-degree murder of her high school sweetheart turned unfaithful husband, Brian. In their opening arguments, prosecutors come out swinging.
That Alicia Hughes, in fact, murdered her husband, Brian Hughes, in cold blood.
I told him exactly how she did it, how she waited for him to come home, how she walked in, how she confronted him, how he was on the phone with Robbie.
I'm sick of you lying to me!
How she shot him.
Lie to me one more time.
After pumping several shots from a .45 into Brian, Alicia allegedly staged the scene to look like an intrusion.
Their theory was that Alicia Hughes got those shell casings from the inside and actually placed them on the outside.
Prosecutors contend Alicia also feigned grief in order to convince police to let her leave the scene, which allowed her to smuggle the murder weapon out of the house in her overnight bag.
I believe this was all premeditated. She planned it. She waited for Brian to come in that night, and then she killed him. She's got two motives. One, the insurance money, and two, an unfaithful husband. You take your pick.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
To support their claim, the state calls Brian's lover, Robbie Rayford, to the stand.
Miss Rayford, can you please tell the court the nature of your relationship with Mr. Hughes?
We were lovers.
She's up there in front of the whole world, basically saying, I'm Brian's mistress. And she said she loved him, and her exact words were,
He was my soulmate.
Can you tell us about the events of June 3rd?
I was on the phone with him.
Yeah, just got home.
I heard him go in the house, and he says, I have to go.
Gotta go.
Then I asked him, is she in the room? And he said, yeah.
That's when he was shot.
And for the court, can you tell us who she is?
His wife.
Everything Robbie said fit with the physical evidence.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have to know that the physical evidence is not adequate to convict Alicia Hughes.
Alicia's defense team counters by attacking the physical evidence, namely the GSR test.
She had a speck of gunshot residue powder on her hand.
For someone to have shot a .45 caliber pistol 5 or 6 times, there'd be GSR on her hair, there'd be GSR on her face, on her arms. It wouldn't be one single particle.
They can't provide a weapon.
The defense also points out the lack of a murder weapon, which renders their theory about Alicia smuggling it out in her overnight bag mere conjecture.
If she could have done that good, she doesn't need to be here. She needs to be in Hollywood. You know, she's one of the best actresses ever lived.
On January 8th, 2007, 2.5 years after Brian's murder, both sides rest their case.
You had folks who said they thought Alicia Hughes was guilty. You had a lot of folks on the other side said this sweet teacher couldn't have killed her husband.
2 hours later, the jury returns with its verdict.
The jurors were saying, you know, guilty, guilty, all 12 of them, just over and over again. And I was still trying to grasp, you know, onto that and trying to keep my face straight.
We were in total shock and disbelief. She couldn't believe it.
Alicia Hughes, please stand. Mrs. Hughes, on the charge of murder in the first degree, I am sentencing you to life in prison.
Alicia just stood there like, there's no way.
As she's carted off to the penitentiary, tears flow from both her supporters and Brian's grieving family.
Brian and Alicia had known each other since high school, so these are also two families that had known each other for many years. And to be divided because of a situation like this made it really tough.
But before either side can put this tragedy behind them, they'll be blindsided by an unlikely turn of events. that forces everyone to question whether Alicia Hughes was a cold-blooded killer or an innocent woman wrongfully accused.
I was sitting on the edge of my seat, wondering, what's gonna happen.
In January of 2007, Alicia Hughes is convicted of murdering her husband and former high school sweetheart, Brian.
The jury found her guilty of killing her husband. Brian Hughes' family, they believe that justice was served.
But immediately following Alicia's conviction, her attorneys file an appeal, arguing prosecutor Stan Alexander unfairly struck jurors in the selection process on the basis of race and gender.
All you heard was Stan was racist. He didn't want black women on the jury. And it's ridiculous. I'm married to a black woman. My mother's a black woman.
Surprisingly, presiding Judge Winston Kidd grants the appeal, ruling that Alicia's right to a fair trial amongst her peers had been violated, in essence, overturning his own verdict.
It was like just instant relief. It was just absolutely an incredible feeling.
On November 5th, 2007, 9 months after her first trial ended, Alicia Hughes walks back into a Mississippi courtroom to stand trial once again for the murder of her husband, this time with a new panel of jurors. And again, the state argues that the evidence still points to just one person.
After we read the entire book, and not just read the cover, you're going to find out that the story of Alicia Hughes' life is that she's guilty of murder.
Prosecutors also called Brian's lover, Robbie Rayford, to the stand to help corroborate their version of events.
What did those words mean to you when he was at home?
It meant that his wife was in his presence.
As in the first trial, Robbie Rayford's testimony seems to connect the dots of the state's case, particularly as it relates to the blood evidence.
There's no way possible you get shot at the front door with a .45 5 times and don't bleed until you get back to the living room floor.
But when it's their turn, Alicia's defense team takes a new approach. And this time, they're armed with some serious legal firepower.
They brought in a top-notch attorney, Dennis Sweet. He's really a high-profile attorney in this area.
Sweet starts by criticizing investigators and the chaos that permeated their crime scene.
The defense pointed out that numerous folks, individuals, were allowed in the house that same night during the shooting, which may have contaminated things.
They didn't secure the scene. The crime scene investigator himself is pretty good. He doesn't lie. His crime scene was not secured. He came in, he's not supposed to secure it, he's supposed to investigate it. So it was like Grand Central Station going through it. He said, yeah.
With so much foot traffic at the crime scene and so many alleged affairs, Sweet asserts it's impossible to determine exactly who killed Brian.
The problems I saw were mainly the infidelity. It came out later on. I feel strongly it's not family, and I think there is some gunman out there who, for whatever reason, whether it's a jilted lover or whether it's some drug dealer that came and killed him. I feel like there's somebody still out there.
After running through the laundry list of jilted lovers and seething spouses who might want Brian dead, the defense turns to another piece of unexplained evidence: the skid marks found outside the home the night of the murder.
They said that skid marks could be there and there was no way to date them.
But Dennis Sweet claims he's found someone who can.
Dennis went and knocked on doors, and he found a neighbor that said, the police never interviewed me. They never come to my house.
On the stand, the Hughes neighbor Dorothea Presley tells the court that on the night of the murder, she awoke to the sound of gunfire.
After you heard the shots, what did you hear anything else?
Shortly thereafter, I heard a car skid away.
She heard the squelching of an automobile tire, like someone, leaving real fast after she heard gunshots. This lady had impeccable credibility, and I think that single witness probably provided the boost to the defense case.
On November 16, 2007, the jury once again breaks for deliberation.
I believe everybody was sitting on the edge of their chair wondering, what are they about to tell us? The courtroom was quiet. It seemed like it took forever for the jury to walk in and sit down.
Again, it takes just 2 hours for the jury to return with a verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
When that second jury came back not guilty, it just doesn't get any better than that.
I don't even remember hearing all the words that were said after the not guilty. I was so thankful to God and to that jury.
Friends and family of Brian Hughes are devastated by the verdict.
They wonder if there'll ever be justice for Brian Hughes. In their minds and the minds of many who knew him, they think a killer got off.
Whoever pulled that trigger, they gonna get theirs one day. I mean, Judgment Day coming.
A lot of folks think that Alicia Hughes is a person who got away with murder.